In Activity 12, Constellations, Stories in the Sky, students investigate constellations. They first observe seasonal changes in the position of constellations, then construct models to help identify several constellations. To conclude the activity, the students write their own stories about the origin of one of the constellations. You'll need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 12, Parts A and B, cardboard squares, push pins, cardboard tubes, 100-watt bulbs, light sources, constellation patterns, bottles of glue, a sheet of black construction paper, and fall sky, spring sky, summer sky, and winter sky transparencies. You'll also need to provide scissors, transparent tape, and an overhead projector. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 12, Parts A and B for each student. Also, make copies of the constellation patterns, one for your demonstration model and one for each team. Cut the black construction paper into 4-centimeter squares. To set up the viewer, cut out one of the reverse constellation patterns, including its number. Place it pattern side up in the center of a square of black construction paper and tape it in place, temporarily with transparent tape. With the cardboard square beneath the paper, punch out the pattern with a push pin through the black paper. Then place several beads of glue around one end of a cardboard tube and put the square of black construction paper on the end with the glue. Pattern side up. Make sure to stand the tube on the pattern end until the glue dries, and then remove the tape and the pattern from the black paper. Next, screw the bulbs into the light sources and choose 2 areas in the classroom where teams can share a light source. Remember to have extension cords handy in case they're needed. Each team of 2 will need 1 cardboard square, 1 push pin, 1 cardboard tube, 1 square of black construction paper, 1 copy of the constellation patterns, scissors, transparent tape, and access to the glue. To begin the activity, remind students that there are countless stars in the universe located enormous distances apart from one another, and that our sun is one of those stars. Ask students to describe some of the stars they might have seen in the night sky. Students may describe one star or a combination or pattern of stars. Explain that a constellation is an area of the sky that contains a particular set of stars. Guide students to imagine that if lines were drawn to connect the stars in a constellation, the resulting shape might resemble a person, an animal, or an object. Display the transparency of the night sky in winter and, if possible, project the image onto the ceiling. Locate the constellation Orion near the southern horizon and trace its shape with your finger. Inform students that these stars always appear in the same arrangement and that this particular constellation is called Orion. Explain to the class that mythology is the study of myths or stories from ancient times that tell of real and imaginary events, persons, and animals. Let students know that many constellations were named after these characters and objects. Next, display the transparency of the constellations of the night sky in spring. Locate Ursa Major, also known as the Big Dipper, near the center of the transparency, and trace the constellation's shape with your finger to familiarize students with its shape. Finally, display the transparency of the night sky in summer and point out that the Big Dipper is in a different part of the sky during this season. Guide students to understand that while the stars and the constellations always form the same shape from our viewpoint on Earth, their position in the night sky changes throughout the year. Ask students, what do you know about Earth's orbit that could explain why this happens? Students should understand that Earth's revolution around the sun causes our view of the night sky to change through the seasons. Show your students your constellation viewer and describe or model how to punch the holes of the constellation pattern into the construction paper and glue it to the tube. Then, hand out a copy of Activity Sheet 12, Part A, to each student. Distribute the materials and assign each team one of the 4 constellation patterns. With your tube, go to one of the light sources and show students how you hold the tube with the pattern end toward the light while you look through the tube at the bright constellation pattern. After your demonstration, have students construct their constellation viewers and look through them toward the light sources. Then, have students complete their activity sheets. Instruct teams to swap tubes with other teams until all students have identified the 4 constellation patterns and recorded the names of the constellations on their activity sheets. Make sure to review students' answers on their activity sheets to confirm that they named the constellations correctly. Next, distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 12, Part B to each student and tell them to write their own story about any constellation that they choose. To assist students, project one or more of the transparencies for students to observe various constellations again. Finally, when all of the stories are written, ask volunteers to share their stories with the class. Call attention to parts of the stories that involve Earth and other objects in our solar system, as well as other stars. To conclude the activity, discard or recycle paper scraps and used constellation patterns, and return all other materials to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.